Hey everybody, Adam here from the Poisoner's Almanac podcast. The winners of our merch giveaway have been chosen and contacted. We're thinking about doing more giveaways in the future. And you guys, let us know what you'd like to see us do. If you noticed on our socials, we were giving away some custom-made coffee cups that were super fun plays on the poisons that we've covered in our episodes, such as foxglove being called the heart stopper on that 15-ounce coffee mug. The perfect mug to sip your coffee in the morning, if I do say so myself. It won't stop your heart. No, because it's coffee, not foxglove. We hope. Also, thank you guys for the 5-star reviews you've been leaving on the episodes. Those function kind of like a tip jar for a podcast. It helps push the podcast further into the algorithm of whatever platform the podcast is on. So thank you so much for doing that. Let's get into the episode. Welcome back to the Poisoner's Almanac podcast. I'm your co-host, Adam.
I'm Rebecca.
How are you, my dear?
I think every time we do this, I say I'm tired, so I want to say something different.
Okay.
I'm less tired. So yeah, we didn't have to do, we didn't do any play dates this weekend, so that was, I'm still recovering from the last weekend.
Still recovering. What are we, a week?
It was rough.
A week later.
Look, it was rough.
Mm-hmm. So this is typical for neurodivergent folks to need, you got to have a lot of time to recover from a social situation such as a play date for your 8-year-old daughter.
There's a lot of screaming involved.
So much screaming. I heard it.
I don't do well with lots of loud sounds, but, So, but getting over that.
Right.
We've, I've been doing a lot of research this week because we're getting into cyanide.
Yes.
And it's been kind of stressful because I've been trying to figure out how to best sort this because it's going to be probably a two-parter. It's going to be a two-parter because...
Two-parter?
Because, it's a big topic. It's a very well-known, popular poison throughout history, and there's some big topics to discuss. So I think I figured out how to divide it up, though, so...
Right. Mm-hmm. So you guys are in for a ride because... Cyanide is obviously one of the most popular poisons in history, and Rebecca's skill and natural talent as a researcher is about to be on full display. Prepare to be amazed, ladies and gentlemen.
I do love to research.
Yes, she does.
I do love it.
So yes, let's get into it. Cyanide.
Cyanide. So I'm going to talk about some of the science, history, even some folklore. Because I do love to get into that too. Because,
it's funny because we were listening to nothing but Taylor Swift on the way home this evening.
Yes, our daughter is really big into Taylor Swift.
Our 8-year-old daughter just discovered Taylor Swift, ladies and gentlemen.
Now she has bangs because Taylor has bangs,
Was that the reason?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure it's what she wanted.
Is that real?
Yes.
Is that why?
Yes.
Oh my God.
It's,
that's so intense.
Yeah, we've gotten to this...
Okay.
To this part of her life.
This train is leaving the station, bro. Okay.
So, I've got some good stuff in here about it. Wow. But I'm going to discuss all that beforehand. And then the second half of this episode, we are going to be talking about some World War II / Holocaust stuff. So if just trigger warning for that. And I will say we're getting into that right before we get into it so that if you don't want to listen to that part, if that, is something that is hard for you to listen to or discuss, then you can, skip that part if you feel like you need to. But definitely an important part of history, though. So if you can handle it, I definitely encourage you to stay for it.
Okay.
Cyanide. Like I said, it's pretty well known. You'll find it in, throughout history. You'll also find it in fiction. My girl, Agatha Christie. There's actually
your girl.
There's a novel actually called Sparkling Cyanide by Agatha Christie.
Really?
And she's used it in a number of her mysteries, including in the book And Then There Were None, one of my absolute favorites.
That's the poison that's used there?
There's one person who dies of poison, and it's discussed that because of the smell, which I will discuss the smell of, this poison.
Of course you will.
That they think it was one of the one of the potassiums. One of the potassiums. Potassium cyanides, probably.
Right.
So.
I'm hyped for it.
So, yeah. Now, I want to talk about where it comes from and how it does its dirty work.
Okay.
So, funny enough, low levels of cyanides are actually found in nature and can be produced by some bacteria, fungi, and algae. It's found in quite a lot of fruit pits and seeds, like in very low concentrations.
Right.
So,
and just to be specific, cyanide, it's a carbon atom and a nitrogen atom. Is that the molecule that makes up cyanide? Or is it more complex than that?
It's a bit more. It's carbon, nitrogen, and hydrogen, I think.
And hydrogen. Oh, okay. I see.
I believe.
All right. I'm going to Google it later.
Yes. Now, it's, like I said, it's found in some fruit pits, including apple pits, the seeds, cherries, apricots, peaches, anything that has like a pit like that. Actually, we'll get to that. So it's also been found in spinach, bamboo shoots, almonds, lima beans, tapioca, all low levels.
Tapioca.
All low levels. But I don't recommend eating fruit pits as a dare or a challenge anyway. That's just, why would you do that? It's not going to...
Do something safe like Tide Pods.
It's not going to kill you.
Okay.
But you might get sick on some of it.
All right. What about Tide Pods?
No, I don't do that. We should just do an entire episode on Tide Pods.
Should we?
Probably good. So, what happens with eating these fruit pits or like spinach, bamboo, it's chewing of it creates this substance called amygdalin, which converts to cyanide. And so that's where the low levels come from.
Oh, okay.
So that's just a little chemistry behind there.
You said amygdalin?
Amygdalin. It's not from the amygdala.
No, but it sounds just like that word.
I know.
Is there any connection?
I don't.
You didn't discover one?
No,
okay.
Not that I could see.
That's interesting. Okay.
There could be. I just didn't go. I was looking at the cyanide side of things because the amygdala is more the emotional center of the brain.
Yes.
So I was trying not to go off on different rabbit trails here. Okay.
Yeah, you're trying to stay focused. Okay.
So, trying to. Now, having said that, eating 3 to 4 pits of the morella cherry or 7 to 9 pits of the red or black cherry is enough to cause cyanide poisoning.
No way.
And historians have actually found references in Egyptian hieroglyphics of death by peach. And some believe that cyanide executions were a thing for them a long time ago. So here, eat this peach pit and see what happens. I don't know. Like they would have to eat a number of them to die. You don't just die from eating one peach pit, but
right.
Anyway, so that was a thing apparently. Now, cyanide is also found in cigarette smoke, vehicle exhaust, and is a common reason for deaths due to smoke inhalation during house fires alongside CO, carbon monoxide.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Carbon monoxide.
Okay.
Yeah. Because of certain materials releasing the gas when burned. So when synthetic materials are burned, it often releases hydrogen cyanide.
Yeah.
So no fun there.
And that's in a gas form,
yes.
obviously. Okay.
It is.
But the way that it's mostly used as a poison would be in liquid form when it's ingested?
We'll go over that.
Okay.
Now, cyanide became much more accessible due to an artist. His name was Heinrich Diesbach. I'm trying to say his name. He's German. He was a German painter. Loved to experiment. And in 1704, he was trying to make a new shade of the color red.
Oh, no.
It's okay.
He's fine? Okay.
Well, he's not fine. It was 1704.
Okay.
He's probably gone now.
Okay.
Anyway, he apparently tried mixing dried blood, potash, which is potassium carbonate, and
you mean
green...
potash?
Is that what it is?
I think it's called potash.
Potash?
Yeah.
Potash. Potash. Well, I was thinking potassium, so I was like, potash.
Is it P-O-T-A-S-H?
Yeah.
That's potash.
Oh. I was thinking like potassium, potash. Okay, maybe not. Whatever.
No, I see what you're thinking.
Yeah, I'm just
But
going with that.
here's the thing though, honestly. I've heard the chemical term potash used, and I'm like, is that a nickname? That sounds like something somebody down in the swamp in Louisiana made up.
Well, there you go.
You potash.
Well, in the South, we call it potash.
Potash.
Anyway. Also, green vitriol.
Potatoes.
Boil them, mash them, stick them in a stew.
Yeah.
Also, green vitriol or iron sulfate. That's what this basically is. If you don't know these words, I didn't either, obviously, because I called potash.
Potash.
So
Potassium.
and he mixed these up before heating them over a flame. And while he was aiming for a deep red, he ended up with a violet blue. It's a little off, which he named Berlin blue. It would later be named Prussian blue.
Like Bob Ross? He uses Prussian blue.
You know, there's cyanide in Prussian blue.
Oh.
By English chemists. So, yeah.
Titanium white.
Alizarin crimson. Okay. Now, about 80 years later, a Swedish chemist mixed Prussian blue with acid solution, and this produced colorless but smelling like bitter almonds, a gas that was colorless and smelled like bitter almonds. Fun fact, though, not everyone can detect the bitter almond smell. Only about like half of people can detect it. It's something genetic.
Wow. So
kind of like the cilantro thing. Like some people think it tastes like soap, but not everybody tastes it like that.
Right.
Anyway.
So for the people who can't smell it, it is tasteless and odorless. So 50%. There's a 50% chance people would never be able to detect it.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
So.
Okay.
Yeah, like I said, it's down to genetics. Mm-hmm. Now, this gas is hydrogen cyanide, and it's easily condensed into a corrosive liquid known as hydrocyanic or prussic acid. Hydrocyanic would be hydro in Greek is water. Cyanos is blue. Hydrocyanic, Prussian acid. So you got the blue color that was
I
that
see where
found.
you're coming from.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so just to let you know about its different forms, we have hydrogen cyanide, which is the gas form, right? Mm-hmm. It's been used in pesticides, explosives, engraving and tempering steel, as a disinfecting agent. Don't ask me where. Making dyes, making nylon, those kinds of things. Mm-hmm. You also have, now when you mix hydrochloric acid. What am I doing? Hydrogen cyanide. Mm-hmm. I'm somewhere deep in the chemistry.
Yes,
in the chemistry.
I can see the smoke coming out of your ears.
Yeah. Hydrogen cyanide plus potassium hydroxide will give you potassium cyanide, which is a salt version of cyanide.
Yes.
Okay. I'm trying to get this as simple as possible. So moving forward, we know what's what.
But I'm a chemistry nerd, so I'm here for it.
Okay. So hydrogen cyanide plus potassium hydroxide, this is where you get a solid form of cyanide as a salt, potassium cyanide.
Okay.
You also get a salt or a solid form from mixing hydrogen cyanide with sodium hydroxide, and that'll give you sodium cyanide, which is another salt of cyanide. Mm-hmm. So if you hear it, like if some people say, oh, potassium cyanide, sodium cyanide, they're both salts. They're just from a different element, basically. So,
okay.
Now, sodium cyanide was used in the mining industry to help extract gold from like useless ore somehow. Yeah.
Oh. Like a chemical way of extraction?
Yeah, so these things did have their uses. Mm-hmm. Potassium cyanide was used in mining and in photography, also electroplating and metal polishing. In fact, some people, especially in the Victorian times, would get sick. Some even died. A few even died because like there were dishes and pots being polished this way and just not washed out well enough.
Okay. Yeah.
Not cool.
No.
In the 19th century, it was also used for as a soap for photographers to remove silver stains from their hands. They would put it, and don't put your hands in your mouth.
Just gonna put this on my skin.
Yeah, they did a lot of stuff back then.
Dude, we were just raw dogging it 100 years ago.
Yeah. So, okay, so that's some of the science stuff. There's probably gonna be some more science stuff because we're gonna talk about the anatomy physiology side of things.
It tickles the chemistry nerd part of my brain.
But I want to make, it clear how this works because I feel like with cyanide, it's nice to know how a poison affects people. And this is the easiest way to tell you. So,
of course.
Now,
I'm still buzzing about the cardiac glycosides, just so you know.
Now, treated with acid, these salt versions will both become hydrogen cyanide again.
All right.
So just letting you know. Now, cyanide was also first extracted from almonds in 1800. So there's a reason why it has that smell, that bitter almond smell.
Wow.
Yeah. So if you ever watch like a mystery or read a mystery novel and they're like, this glass smells like bitter almonds, that's how you know there's probably
Yes.
cyanide being used.
That's the author telling you, I know that it smells like this.
It's cyanide. Okay. Now, I'm going to talk about cyanide in the body real quick. So let's talk symptoms first because they'll make sense as we get to the how of it all. Acute cyanide poisoning causes dizziness, headache, nausea, slow heart rate, loss of consciousness, convulsions, lung damage, respiratory failure, confusion, coma, and death.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a lot of times you'll be dead before you even feel some of those symptoms because it is a fast-acting poison.
Okay.
Lethal doses can be 300 plus milligrams of solid or powdered cyanide or 100 plus milligrams of hydrogen cyanide. It is more lethal as a gas or if it's introduced into the venous system, which is not good.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there are differences between, just to let you know, there's differences between hydrogen cyanide and carbon monoxide poisoning, even though you can see them both in like a house fire or something with somebody coming in to the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
Some of those would be that the symptoms of carbon monoxide poisoning will abate with oxygen therapy, but
Yes.
not with hydrogen cyanide.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Seizures are more common with hydrogen cyanide, and the pupils may dilate with hydrogen cyanide, but not so much with carbon monoxide poisoning. So just in case you need some differences to note there.
So that's got to be something to do with...
But you'll probably see if you're in a fire and there's things burning, smoke's being released, gases are being released, you're probably going to see a mixture of the two.
Yeah, because they're both in the smoke from combustion.
But if you got oxygen therapy going on, like they're getting O2, and it's something still going on, it's like, oh, we need to make sure this isn't going on with it, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So let's get into some details. Like we've already been in some details, but some more details. Do you remember the mitochondria?
Oh, the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. Thank you very much.
I had a feeling you were going to say that.
Do I know how to do my taxes? No.
Okay.
I'm 40. Please continue.
Well, okay. Powerhouse of the cell. Yeah. But they don't really they don't tell you why all the time for some reason in school. They just tell you, just remember that because it's on the test, okay?
That's right.
So energy is produced as ATP. That should be a word you've...
Adenosine triphosphate.
Thank you.
Triphosphate even.
Through the electron transport train. Now, if you look this up...
Wait, electron transport chain or train?
Chain. Did I say train?
You did.
Oh, choo-choo.
We still ended up in the same destination, but I've always heard it as chain.
Yeah. I think of it as like a... Maybe it's my brain because I see it as a train going down the picture of the mitochondria. No? Maybe it's just me.
Yeah, the squiggly...
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like the tracks of the train.
Yeah, if you look up the mitochondria, you'll see like this little process on how ATP is made, and it just goes right down into the center of the oval-shaped mitochondria with the little ladder-looking things.
Yeah.
Anyway, so this is where energy is made as ATP for your body. So, pretty big deal.
Yeah.
So cyanide actually prevents the transfer of electrons to oxygen by binding to one of the essential proteins in this chain. Because of this nearly irreversible bond, cells cannot produce the ATP needed, and organs with high energy demands, such as the brain and heart, are quickly affected.
Definitely.
So it also attaches to hemoglobin, which carries oxygen in the blood.
That is strike two, I tell you.
So the red blood cells are prevented from
taking up oxygen.
Yeah, absorbing oxygen.
Oh my gosh.
Leading to cells being starved of oxygen, and the person is basically asphyxiated from the inside out. So that's how cyanide works.
Wow.
So you can see why it's a very fast-acting poison.
But it's doing that. It's not just respiratory shutdown. It's like cognitive shutdown, cardiac shutdown, like any cell that needs.
Not only are you being asphyxiated, but...
Yes. You're being turned off.
Yeah.
Wow.
Unplugged, so to speak. Mm-hmm. Not in the good way. Thus, because of the lack of ATP or energy, and oxygen, organs like the brain, heart, and lungs are quickly distressed, leading to neurological symptoms, arrhythmias, low blood pressure, cardiac arrest, and respiratory distress. You'll see, like, one of the telltale signs is rapid breathing or gasping as the body desperately tries to compensate. It's trying to breathe in, but no matter what, it's just not working. Now, treatment for cyanide poisoning really depends on the speed an antidote is given. Cyanide is very quick acting, like I said, and death can occur within minutes. Or if in a lower chronic exposure, even a few hours. Just depends.
Wow.
Usually it's more of an acute sort of situation, though.
Let me ask, okay, the Captain America movie, you've seen that?
It's been a while, but yeah.
Okay, Richard Armitage is in the beginning of that movie. Do you remember this? He's a secret agent
Thorin?
for Hydra. Yes,
That
the guy who played Thorin.
I know him.
Richard Armitage is in the beginning of that movie, but he's actually an agent of Hydra. He commits suicide with the use of a false tooth that is actually a pill that he bites.
We're going to talk about that too.
Okay.
Not about him, but there. When we get into the Nazi crap.
But he foams at the mouth and then expires. You know what I mean?
It can do that.
Okay. I always thought, is that
your
cyanide?
your lungs are starting to fill with fluid and all that stuff.
Yes.
And I actually read about this guy. It was in this book that I have open right here.
Becca is developing quite an authentic library of poisonous books.
I love it. Yeah, there was, in the late 1890s, one daring physician swallowed a light dose of potassium cyanide to test its effects.
Oh, God.
We don't do science this way, thankfully, anymore. That's not how you do science. I mean, you could do it that way, but it doesn't always turn out for good for people.
Oh, my God.
Around that time, medical papers still cite his gasping cries as he was suffocating. He did live, but no one repeated the experiment.
You don't say.
Yeah. So.
Science.
Yeah, science.
Okay.
Don't do it that way. So, antidotes. Obviously, airway, breathing, and circulation must quickly be stabilized. Mouth to mouth is not recommended in these cases because the transfer of poison could be there.
Yeah, you could be poisoned yourself. Oh, my God. Okay.
Activated charcoal does not seem to bind well to ingested cyanide, but some studies have still shown decreased mortality if it is given for some reason. So sometimes it is. The antidote of choice, though, is hydroxycobalamin, especially if carbon monoxide poisoning is also present, say because of smoke inhalation. This removes cyanide from tissue by forming cyanocobalamin, vitamin B12, which is then excreted via urine. Yeah.
Oh, so the end product is vitamin B12 that gets excreted.
Using chemistry.
Oh, my God. That is brilliant.
Yeah.
Because I've seen cyanocobalamin on medication lists for tons of my patients.
Well, yeah, some people take it if they're low in
B12,
they're
B12 deficient.
Their energy is going to be low too.
Of course. That is genius, dude.
Yep.
Okay.
If this is not available, there are cyanide antidote kits that include amyl nitrate, sodium nitrate, and sodium thiosulfate. But the hydroxycobalamin is the first, thing they usually go to.
First thing you reach for.
Now, complications with this, some survivors may have anoxic encephalopathy, like if they survive.
Sure.
There's going to be some
oxygen
long-term
deprivation
complications.
Yeah.
Also Parkinson's-like symptoms. Yeah.
Wow.
And other neurological issues.
Well, that would mean it has to stop. The brain has to develop a dopamine deficiency after the fact.
Well, if it's killing off, if it's anoxic.
The dopaminergic.
Yeah, then some of your cells are dying off, so they're not going to be as able to do those things.
Okay.
All right, let's get into a little bit of history and folklore. This is where things get a little lighter. Let's get a little lighter before we get a little darker.
I don't know. I was kind of having fun.
Get a little lighter before we get dark. Okay?
The chemistry was cool.
Chemistry is cool. But some people are probably like, "What are you talking about?"
Dopaminergic neurons, bro.
No, but I tried to make it as simple as I could because I feel like when you understand how a poison works, it just I just feel like it makes it more fascinating to hear.
Certainly. Why
people used it the way they did. Okay, so there have been some interesting stories involving certain plants containing cyanide. Apples being one of them. Now, apples have been a symbol for a long time of like evil, to be honest. I mean, think about it, Adam and Eve.
Yeah.
It doesn't say in the real story, it does not say that was an apple. People have just sort of, that was later added that, it's an apple.
Yeah, but it's commonly depicted
as an apple. Even though it's like, it just says fruit in the story, right?
Okay.
Yeah, so I don't know why they said it was an apple, but apparently apples have been kind of viewed as bad for a long time.
What if it's a PR play by Big Peaches?
Or Big Pears.
Big pears.
Big oranges.
Big cucumbers.
Anyway. So, but I'm going to tell you a few stories about these. Apple cores only have small amounts of cyanide in the seeds, not enough to cause poisoning if ingested, but the fruit itself has long been associated with death and sin.
Snow White.
Yeah.
Okay.
Even if it's only been assumed to be the fruit that Eve ate, as we talked about. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure, who even started that rumor.
A man.
Probably.
Just kidding.
Probably. You're probably right.
I'll take the bear, thanks.
Yep, exactly.
If you know, you know.
Now, in Greek mythology, Melos was a young man who fell in love with Adonis, son of King Cyrus. Adonis was killed on a hunting trip, and Melos, struck with grief, hanged himself from the branches of a tree. Aphrodite, the goddess of love,
yes,
in Greek, was said to have honored him by turning him into the first apple. So that's where they believed apples came from.
Okay.
So if you eat apples back then, you're eating a dead dude. I don't know. Whatever.
That is so strange.
I don't know. Look, they had a bunch of interesting stories. Okay, don't even get me started on Zeus.
Tell me about Zeus. I'm just kidding. You said don't get you started, and I tried to get you started. Also,
Samhain, the Gaelic festival of the dead, is also known as the Feast of Apples, and the fruit is left as offerings on graves and altars. And I haven't looked into this, but I'm wondering if that's where bobbing for apples comes from too.
I thought you were about to say something like that.
Something similar, because we know it is Halloween. And so that's just an old tradition too.
Do you remember that? Do you remember that scene from The Office where Erin Hannon is bobbing for apples at the office party?
Yes.
And they finally pull her up and she goes, "I ate 2."
Oh my God. She almost drowned. Now I want to talk about a few stories that have been told. I'm not sure the accuracy of these stories, but they have long been told, right? Now there's the story of Micah Rood and the bloody heart apple. Okay, this was an apple that actually existed, but now it's extinct.
Okay.
There was a kind of apple that had a blood red spot at its core, and it is said that the apple started growing in the late 1700s in Franklin, Connecticut, on Micah Rood's farm. The story goes that Micah was accused of murdering a traveling salesman who had been found dead, robbed under a tree on his farm. He was acquitted because of lack of evidence, but soon after the tree produced this fruit, this apple, with a bloody mark inside, symbolizing his guilt.
Ooh.
So that's,
Okay.
Now there's another story that's very similar, apparently, and it's still told in Scotland, that was recorded in 1883, about the bloody plowman. This apple was named for a man who was shot and killed for stealing apples from an estate to feed his family, and his widow could not eat the apples afterward and threw them into the yard. Apparently the following year, the tree grew, the tree that grew produced these apples that had red flesh on the inside. Red as the skin. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Wouldn't eat those, but hey.
No, that's probably a sign of something going wrong.
Yeah. So, interesting stories, though,
Wow.
Now, the medieval church also believed in enchanted apples that could cause demon possession.
Well, you got to keep people interested in church.
So, there was a lot of, demon possession in that time, I guess.
Especially with apples.
With apples. Apples, yeah. Bad apple. He's a bad apple. Maybe that's...
Is that in your notes, or you just came up with that?
I just came up with that.
Okay.
Like, he's a bad apple.
Oh, that's...
Maybe that's where it comes from.
That'd be hysterical if that was connected.
There's also stories about golden apples in Greek and Irish folklore that you can look into. I want to talk about cherry laurels now.
Please do.
Cherry trees, Both the leaves and fruit seeds are a source of cyanide. Mm-hmm. Edwardian insect collectors actually used to crush these leaves to kill an insect in a trapped container to preserve the specimen so it wouldn't like harm the outside of the specimen, basically.
That's fascinating.
So if you're an insect collector, do people still do that?
I'm sure.
I don't know. People used to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so basically the prussic acid from the leaves would fill the container airtight, and then it would kill the insect.
Wow.
So there you go. Now in 1780, there was a murder of Sir Theodosius Boughton. Theodosius is a cool name, by the way.
Absolutely.
Now, his brother-in-law, Captain John Donnellan, apparently poisoned his drink with cherry laurel water and was only caught... He did it for his fortune, but he was only caught because Boughton's mother smelled the bitter almond smell in the drink afterwards. So they looked into it and found out, yep, that's definitely he definitely poisoned him. Also, cherry laurel water was, it was a favorite of the Roman Emperor Nero.
That guy.
When it came to poisoning the wells of enemy cities, he would use cherry laurel water. So...
How much cherry laurel water does it take to poison a well?
That sounds like a joke, but I don't know. I didn't look into that too far.
A Roman emperor.
I don't plan on poisoning any wells, so I didn't look into that.
A rabbi, a Roman emperor, and cherry laurel water barrels walk into a bar.
Yeah, since I don't plan on doing that, I know. There's a lot. I'm surprised someone hasn't come to my door to check me out if there's somebody watching my search history, because there's so many poison searches.
To the FBI agent assigned to my wife. Hello.
It's just research, okay? He might listen to this. Who knows?
Yeah.
Okay, so hydrangeas. Actually, one of my favorite flowering bushes, shrubs, whatever you want to call it.
Hydrangeas, you say?
Hydrangeas.
Okay.
Actually have low levels of cyanide. Eating enough of them, I don't know why you would eat any of them, can make you sick. But, if you have pets, be wary of that.
Like how many? Asking for a friend.
I wouldn't make a salad out of it. Okay. Now, they are very pretty.
Jesus Christ, Brad, did you make a salad from those hydrangeas?
They are very pretty flowering bushes whose flowers will change color depending on the acidity of the soil. So I don't know if there's a lot of gardeners out here, who already know that or not, but
the acidity of the soil.
So sometimes you'll see them as blue or pink.
Okay. Yeah.
So once thought to be fairy magic, that did this. They did. They thought.
I just love that.
Yeah, they thought that a blue color, if a blue color came about on hydrangeas, it meant that you were supposed to be lucky, like the fairies were blessing you with luck. The fae folk.
Give it to me straight, Doc. It's fairy magic.
It's the fae folk.
The fae.
Yeah.
The high fae or just regular fae?
I don't have a lot of fae knowledge, so.
Okay.
Although they are cool. There's
super cool.
I know some things, but
everything I learned about fae comes from Sarah
stuff.
J. Maas books. We know this. Please continue.
There's some good creators on TikTok who talk about folklore, though. So.
Yes, there are.
So yeah, it's pretty cool to watch. Now, getting back on track though, pink meant bad fortune. So there's that. Yeah. But the blue color actually arises with acidic or aluminum heavy soil, and the pink comes with lime heavy soil. So if you want your hydrangeas to change color, you can
get out of town.
Add, according to what you want.
But you could plant a single hydrangea bush to tell you what the condition of your soil is.
You could.
Of course you can test it, but
you could also change the condition of your soil too by adding certain substances.
That's really interesting.
Now, in Victorian times, hydrangeas actually represented heartlessness. And planting them near your door would doom your daughters to never marry.
Okay.
I would have definitely planted some near my door. I would be like, Mom, plant that.
Do that.
Because no way. Like, back in those days, being married, it was like...
No, friend. You would have been one of them chicks that poisoned her husband.
At the same time, it's
with the help of the priest.
At the same time, though, if you weren't, already born rich, you were either married or you were poor.
Or you died destitute and alone.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that sucks.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Victorian men would also send bouquets of hydrangeas to women who had rejected them out of spite.
Okay.
So there's some fun little lore.
It's giving fiend.
A bit petty.
It's giving Betty.
Yeah. So there you go.
I sent that girl some hydrangeas. Oh!
Yeah. So I mean, I would have liked them. Like, still said no.
Right. Not changing my mind.
So there's just some plants that have had a little bit of story behind them, and like that have cyanide in them, and might be some connection there. Now, cyanide itself, just as it is, has been used, was used quite a bit in Victorian times anyway as a poison to actually cause harm. There was a Westchester man who apparently got irritated one evening because his wife wouldn't fetch his cigarettes. And so he placed a box of poisoned candy in the sitting room table and waited for her to sample it. Imagine that. Like, oh, how dare you didn't do this thing that I asked you to do, even though I can get out myself and do it. Yeah. A fired Mayville County clerk sent a box of homemade candy laced with cyanide to a woman who had replaced her. Like, geez.
All right, Petty.
Okay. And there was a White Plains woman irritated by her neighbor's barking dog that substituted a bottle of milk containing cyanide for one that the milkman had delivered. I don't have any updates on that story.
I'll keep you posted.
A newly married woman in Olean hadn't wanted a stepson, so she'd sent the 6-year-old boy a box of poisoned chocolates while he was vacationing in Missouri, nearly killing his aunt, who ate a piece when her nephew shared his candy.
That lady's marriage material, I tell you.
Tell you what. The thing is, like, it's so strange, like, because people just did that. Like, there was no, like, maybe I shouldn't do this. They had the time to think about not doing this. You know what I mean? So
yeah, and it's not like there's a ton of serial killers running around in the Dark Ages or whenever.
I mean, in Victorian times there might have been.
Victorian times, yeah.
Now, let's see. One, I'm just reading from this book because it's great. There were quite a few fumigations that would happen, and accidental deaths would occur because they would use hydrogen cyanide.
You're kidding me.
Yeah, it's been fumigations.
Fumigations to get rid of pests, or?
Yeah, so if they accidentally forgot to tell people who were in apartment buildings or hotels that they were fumigating.
It's not too difficult to tell if we're dealing with a time period that included what we now know as litigious society, where you can sue people for things. Apparently, you couldn't do that when they did that.
Well, I mean, people would get caught, and there was a lot of cyanide via mail too. Like, people were just sending stuff like chocolates and things laced with cyanide to people. But it just makes me think, like, these people were just how like mean-spirited can you be? I'm just like, you know what? I don't want a stepson. I'm just going to send him some chocolates laced with.
I will kill the 6-year-old.
Who thinks like that?
Ugh.
Anyway. Moving on to some cases that are more specific and probably more well known. We're going to talk about, you know who Rasputin is?
Absolutely.
Like from Anastasia? And I geek her, sir. I loved that little bat. That bat was like my favorite part of the movie.
Yes, voiced by Hank Azaria. Fun fact.
Nice.
Who also plays Kamun Ra in Night at the Museum. Same guy.
There you go. Now, Grigory Rasputin, there were some rumors about his death. And I'm sure many people have heard some things about Rasputin just not dying, like taking a long time and a lot of effort to kill. We're going to talk about that a little bit. So he's the dude. If you don't know Rasputin, he was the dude that befriended the imperial family of Nicholas II, the last emperor of Russia, and he acted as a sort of mystic and healer. Like, I think he got into their good graces by healing, quote unquote, healing their son of, he was a hemophiliac. He had a hemophilia situation going on.
Yes.
But a lot of people think now that what he did was he stopped the doctors from giving him aspirin, which made his situation worse because they didn't know they were making his situation worse by giving him the aspirin. So in doing away with the doctors in favor of this healer,
wow,
it was
he
helping.
Accidentally solved an issue.
It was helping.
Wow.
He wasn't cured, basically, but he was helping him not have bleeding, because aspirin can make you bleed.
Yeah, that's right.
So.
Is aspirin an antiplatelet or antithrombotic? What's the?
It has some slight antithrombotic
Okay.
effects.
Now that we've laid that to rest.
I mean, it's not heparin.
Right.
But
It's not an anticoagulant.
It's not. Well, I mean, it has some anticoagulant effects,
Right,
but
okay.
not as
All right.
serious as, say, heparin.
You listeners are just sitting there while two healthcare nerds work something out. Anyways.
Yeah. But aspirin, by the way, comes from the bark of a willow tree.
Yes.
There you go.
Super cool.
A little extra. Anyway, back to Rasputin.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there were some that believed him to be a fake, that he was manipulating the imperial family. He probably was. I mean...
Oh, 100%.
He was crazy. If you look up his history and, like, who he was, he was a fake hoe. he was not a great dude.
Oh, that was so fun.
He was sleeping around. He was doing all kinds of stuff.
He was
Some suspect he was sleeping with the Empress.
He was a high-functioning sociopath.
Yeah. And this is the last family before the Bolshevik Revolution happened, with the killing of that family, including Anastasia and all that stuff. And then thus you have the rumors that, oh no, Anastasia got away and we don't know. That's where the movie comes from, and the rumors and the have you heard there's a rumor in St. Petersburg? All that stuff. Yeah. I'm getting away from myself here, but
no, this is all pertinent, please.
So yeah. That's who we're talking about, though.
Okay.
Now, there's a story found in the memoirs of Prince Felix Yusupov, and it tells of an attempted murder of Rasputin in 1916 using cyanide-laced cakes and wine. Now, according to him, Rasputin ate some of these cakes and drank some of the wine. He didn't want any at first, but then he kind of gave in and had some, but seemed to be unaffected by the poison.
Mm-hmm.
So this story would later be challenged by Rasputin's daughter, saying that he hated sweets, so why would he eat them? And his official autopsy report by the official surgeon did not include poisoning and states that his death was from a gunshot wound to the head at close range. So he did go, they basically shot him and like threw him in a river and all this stuff, but apparently this guy says they tried to poison him first and it didn't work. So that is what he claims, but we don't know for sure. Just an interesting kind of viewpoint from him.
Okay.
Now, I will say that I have heard that sugar and alcohol can actually lower the effects of cyanide. So I don't know if they just chose.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Anyway, but it might just be him exaggerating too. Not really. It can't really be for sure. So it
of
has
course,
been,
yeah. For this time period,
right.
You can't. Yeah, there's no hardcore records or whatever.
And like the autopsy didn't report any findings of poison, but I don't know that they were looking for it either.
Mm-hmm.
So,
what is that, like the middle of the 1800s?
This is 1916.
60. Okay, yeah.
1916.
Okay,
Yeah.
World War I era.
About to be.
Interesting.
Well, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, World War I.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of this guy. Okay. Now, let's see. Now, some knowing that what cyanide could do as a pesticide kind of took it a dark step further. In 1918, there was a man named Fritz Haber who won the Nobel Prize for Chemistry for converting nitrogen to produce, which was into a fertilizer, basically.
Oh, yeah.
Did I just say to produce?
You did.
Nitrogen to produce a fertilizer.
To produce a fertilizer.
I'm tired.
Understood.
To better agricultural welfare. He also helped develop gases for use as chemical weapons. He was also the...
Now, that was not a left-hand turn I was expecting. Okay.
He actually... I'm going to tell you about a few of these chemical weapons as we go. But he was actually the creator of chlorine gas, too.
Oh, wow.
So...
Well, there's overlap between developing a nitrogen-based fertilizer and then cyanide because it contains nitrogen also.
Yes. Well, we're getting into that. Yeah.
Okay.
Now, these kinds of weapons weren't new. During World War I, nearly 100,000 people were killed using chemical warfare. Mm-hmm. World War I was also known as the Chemists' War for that reason.
Yeah.
And 1 million more were left injured long term.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the ones most feared at that time were chlorine gas, mustard gas, and phosgene gas.
Okay.
One gas Fritz Haber was known for is the pesticide. Wow. Pesticide gas. Zyklon B. So that's what we're going to talk about now.
Real quick, I just wanted to add, what I've heard about World War I was the technology started to outpace tactics.
Yeah.
So they're still fighting like trench warfare, but then there's biological weapons.
You got people riding horses into battle, meeting people with tanks.
Right. So it was an awkward, So,
it was not pretty.
No.
It was awful.
Yeah. It was gruesome.
All war is awful, let's be honest.
It was 100% true.
So, yeah. Now, this is where we're going to start talking a little bit about World War II and some Holocaust stuff. It's going to get pretty dark, so if you feel like you can't handle that, you might want to turn it off now.
Okay.
Okay, moving on, though. Now, Zyklon B. During World War II, this would be the gas used to murder Jewish prisoners in concentration camps at Auschwitz.
Oh, wow.
So, Zyklon B was made from pellets of diatomaceous earth, which I think a lot of gardeners probably know of. You can spread diatomaceous earth to kind of prevent pests from, like if they ingest it, it hurts them, I think, but it doesn't hurt you so much.
Really?
I mean, you shouldn't probably eat it either, but like, it won't hurt the plants.
How does it harm pests?
It feels like if they eat it, it kind of cuts up their insides from what I hear.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Okay.
Uh-huh. I looked into it and it felt kind of,
I've never heard of it. Wow.
Kind of sad me a little bit.
All right.
Which, I like to garden, so I don't like pests, but I am also conflicted because I hate killing things too. Mm-hmm. So yeah, these pellets are saturated with hydrogen cyanide or prussic acid. Mm-hmm. Now, prisoners of the concentration camps would be told to undress before being taken into extermination chambers, often under the guise of getting a shower.
Yeah.
Though through various diary accounts, most knew what was about to happen.
Yeah.
Once the chambers were full, the doors were closed, and Zyklon B pellets were put into the chamber via vents. And now death would range from nearly instant or seconds up to 20 minutes, depending on how close or far one was from the vents. The closer you were to the vents, the quicker the death. But it wasn't, either way, it wasn't an easy death.
Right.
So, no fun. Pretty awful stuff.
Yeah.
And you could actually go to the Auschwitz museum and stuff. There's a whole museum there now where all this took place. That is, I've never been, but I've heard it's pretty life-changing. Mm-hmm. Now, let's see. The chambers would have been overcrowded with victims falling on top of one another in a pretty terrible death.
Yeah.
And I wanted to read a quote by Johann Kramer, who was actually arrested for the war crimes that he participated in. Kramer was a doctor, a physician, during this time, and he was pretty much on the Nazi side of things. Mm-hmm. But he said, as an anatomist, I have seen a lot of terrible things. I had a lot of experiences with dead bodies, and yet what I saw that day was nothing I had ever seen before. Another SS officer declared of Auschwitz, this is the annus mundi.
Well, what does that mean?
I don't know.
Oh, I thought you were going to tell me.
No. I can look it up.
Well, it's okay.
I know it. Well.
I'm familiar with the word anus. Sorry. This is Research in Real Time, ladies and gentlemen.
What in the world? No, not anima. It changed it.
Oh, it auto-corrected?
Yeah. I was like, that can't be what it means.
Is it a German phrase?
It's one of those memoirs that are too vivid to be read. Oh, it's a memoir as well as... There's a memoir called it.
Oh, he's referring to a book.
No, I think they named it after what he said.
Oh.
Anus of the world.
Oh, well.
There you go.
There you have it.
Okay, so there's that. Now, Johann Paul Kramer was actually found guilty of war crimes at the Auschwitz trial in 1947 based on the contents of his diaries and his confession to helping with the gassings at least 14 times. More than 1 million Jews were killed at Auschwitz, with around 1,600 being murdered in one day alone, according to Kramer's diary entries, with the cyanide gas.
It's unreal.
Now, there is a bit of irony with Fritz Haber, the creator of Zyklon B and chlorine gas, working on chlorine gas, amongst other chemical warfare weapons. He himself was a Jew.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Around this time, though, he kind of he left Germany because he saw what was happening. And he didn't want to be there when that happened. Now, along with the creation of Zyklon B, he also created mustard, chlorine, and phosgene gases used in World War I. His wife, Clara, was so against this and so horrified at his involvement that she used his service revolver on herself, dying by suicide.
Oh, my God.
During World War II, he left the country, but much of his extended family were killed in the gas chambers.
Oh, my God.
2 of his 3 children also died by suicide. His eldest son, Hermann Haber, died in 1946 after his wife passed away. He died by suicide afterwards. His daughter, Claire, died by suicide in 1949. She was a chemist and had been informed that her research into an antidote for the effects of chlorine gas, her father's creation, was being put on a shelf in favor of work on the atomic bomb.
Oh, my God.
So, yay, humanity.
Oh, my gosh. That's so intense, dude.
Now, Fritz Haber himself died of heart failure in 1934 at the age of 65.
So, but his wife, Fritz's wife, did she connect what they were developing and what they were thinking of using it for?
She died before, I believe she died before World War II.
Okay, so she was just appalled.
She was disgusted at his involvement even during the First War.
He knew it was a weapon.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God. Okay.
He had no problems with using it as that. He said it wasn't any different than shooting someone, so what did it matter, basically? Now, I think he probably changed his tune when World War II happened because it directly affected him and his, who he was. Of course, so,
yeah.
But yeah, it's pretty rough.
Awful.
Pretty rough. Now, chemical warfare or chemical weapons in warfare was prohibited in the Geneva Protocol signed in 1925. So if you don't know a lot about the history there's quite a bit of history going on there. I think in the UN now there's 193 member states. Is that right? I'm guessing.
Don't know.
I think I looked it up and that's what it said, but I don't know if that was an updated number.
Okay.
Now, this protocol does not prohibit, the one in 1925 does not prohibit the development, production, or stockpiling of chemical weapons. They also reserve the right to use chemical weapons against those not a part of the protocol or retaliation. So it was very weak language. They were just like, we shouldn't use these against each other, but if you want to make them and just stockpile them, you can totally do that.
Wow.
So there's that. And let's see, in 1997, the Chemical Weapons Convention was put into action, providing for the elimination of an entire category of weapons of mass production. This would prohibit, develop, production, acquisition, stockpiling, transfer, or use of chemical weapons by member states.
Wow. This is heavy stuff.
Now, I want to mention too, like we talking about the Holocaust, like we mentioned the Nazis, in Germany. But there were other countries using some pretty heavy chemical weapons. That includes like Japan's Unit 731. I don't know if you ever heard of that. We hear a lot about, well, some of us hear a lot about the Holocaust.
Sure.
And
I see what you did there.
Yeah. History feels kind of different in different places.
That was amazing.
But a lot of times we don't hear about what Japan did to China.
Okay.
I'm not going to discuss a lot of it here because I feel like it would take up its own episode, but it's a lot.
Okay, would this have anything to do with why the Chinese and the Japanese kind of have a mortal hatred of each other?
It could. I mean, I don't know their extensive history, but this was pretty rough. There was biological and chemical warfare. They intentionally spread things like the plague and used chemical weapons. I mean, we're talking torture stuff I don't even want to mention because I feel like it's bad. It's really bad. If you're if you want to look at it, you can. But trigger warning, it's bad.
Sure. And just to be clear, probably the sentiments aren't the same for the entirety of the Chinese and Japanese populations currently, for sure.
Yeah, but
I know there has been bad blood.
This was around, I want to say, World War II. Mm-hmm. I want to say it was around World War II as well. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I get those mixed up. I think it was World War II. And I mean, America also they treated the Japanese
super fun.
Yeah. So I mean, everywhere it feels like everywhere around the world there's been some pretty awful crap that's happened.
What's that Tears for Fears song? Everybody wants to rule the world.
Yeah. Humanity. Anyway, so just to let you know what some of these weapons entail, I know I've mentioned a few, but I'm going to let you know what exactly they do. Chlorine gas was first used in 1915. It produces a green-yellow cloud that smells like bleach and irritates the eyes, nose, lungs, and throat. It kills by asphyxiation at high enough doses. If you're not careful, also, when cleaning your bathroom, if you mix bleach...
Yes, don't do this.
What is it? Is it bleach and any kind of product with ammonia?
Yes, it's bleach and ammonia.
Then you'll end up with basically chlorine gas in your bathroom. Don't do that.
Lesson learned.
Make sure you read the labels on your stuff.
Yes.
Phosgene, 6 times deadlier than chlorine gas, and apparently smells like moldy hay. Okay. Whatever that smells like.
I totally saw that coming.
I don't work on a farm, so I don't know. It is pretty sneaky and colorless, causing the lungs to fill with fluid so that victims suffocate. They won't even know they've been affected until it's basically too late. Phosgene was responsible for 85% of chemical weapons deaths during World War I.
Oh, okay.
Mustard gas, king of the battle gases. Some say it smells like garlic, gasoline, rubber, or dead horses.
That's an interesting description.
There's that, yeah.
Okay.
I put a question mark next to that, huh?
I'm going to inflect my voice up at the end because I'm not sure.
It causes bad blistering on and in the body. These often become infected. It also causes pain and watering in the eyes and temporary blindness. It is estimated to have caused around 120,000 deaths, mostly indirect as wound infection, things like that. Because not only is war terrible, it's filthy, gross, yucky.
Yeah.
Okay. Sarin gas, synthesized in Germany in 1938. It's a nerve agent that reacts on contact with skin or when inhaled. I've always called this next one just VX. Mm-hmm. I'm guessing, I don't know if there's a totally different way to say that. I've just called it VX. I've only looked this stuff up in relation to what I was studying for the cyanide. So,
having seen the movie The Rock, starring Sean Connery and Nicolas Cage, I am an expert on VX gas.
Oh, God. It is the most powerful of nerve agents, 100 times deadlier than sarin. Mm-hmm. It can kill within minutes of being inhaled, and it is declared a weapon of mass destruction by the UN.
So in that movie, Connery and Nicolas Cage, they are transferring some vials, which are spherical in form, from one container to the next. Mm-hmm. Cage is the chemist who's the expert. Connery is, the old grizzled special forces vet or whatever, and he is very particular. Do not move that or something. And there's a scene in the movie where they depict someone being killed by the VX gas, and it's gruesome. So
yeah.
Anyways,
now I don't know. Sometimes movies do emphasize what it looks like, but it is deadly.
Sure.
It is deadly. Mm-hmm. There's one called Taboon. It attacks the nervous and muscular systems. It's toxic even in minute doses. Synthesized in 1936 by a German chemist for use as a pesticide. And let's not forget Agent Orange and napalm. Operation Ranch Hand is when they let loose Agent Orange. More than 13 million gallons of Agent Orange were used in Vietnam. Yeah. And we still see long-term problems, including birth defects.
Yep.
cancers, things like that. I actually had a
diabetes,
patient.
cardiac issues.
I had a patient when I worked at the VA who was dealing with like muscular dystrophy, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
Likely due to Agent Orange.
I have had scores of Vietnam veterans as patients who have had Agent Orange exposure. But what baffles me is that we continue to have instances of stuff like the burn pits in the Middle East today. Like, U.S. military, they get stationed in a desert environment. The burn pits are a common occurrence. It's as if there's never been a chemical engineer on the payroll of the Department of Defense who would say, hey, maybe it's not a good idea to take human feces, old uniforms, batteries, put them in a hole and burn it all together. Oof. And have our guys stand next to it on sentry duty.
It sounds to me like nobody really cared to.
It's awful.
Figure that out.
It's so awful.
Yeah, and also remember, like, this is like long acting stuff. This stuff is still in the ground over there.
Oh.
You've got babies born with defects in Vietnam. They're dealing with all this. It was dropped not only on trees, it was dropped on crops, things that people eat, the water they drink. It was awful.
Yes.
So
I think these guys have told me, there's obviously super thick jungle. It's a typical Southeast Asia terrain. They drop Agent Orange with helicopters. In 24 hours, all of the vegetation is dead.
It's an herbicide. Yeah.
Yes.
But it's incredibly poisonous, and it's basically chemical warfare.
Yes.
So you also have napalm. Mm-hmm. These are basically, it's been known as called firebomb fuel gel. Mm-hmm. It's basically aluminum soap plus naphthenic acid from crude oil plus palmitic acid from coconut oil. And when combined with gasoline, it creates a bomb that explodes and ignites on impact, burning up to 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit, or if you like Celsius, 2,760 degrees Celsius. Mm-hmm. So also Agent Orange contained dioxin. It's another poison we'll actually talk about later. So now 2 more instances I know we're getting short on time, but there's 2 more things I want to talk about.
Sure.
One of those is Hitler's death. And this is where some of that Captain America storyline comes into play.
We're turning positive.
Anyway, now as the end of World War II approached, Hitler and his wife, Eva Braun, and members of his command basically chose to kill themselves rather than be taken captive.
Yep.
Now, Hitler and Braun retired to his study and bit down on glass ampules of cyanide. Hitler had also shot himself because he didn't want to go through the poisoning part. Anyway.
Oh, that was his cause of death?
He shot himself after he
took the cyanide?
Yeah, I guess he didn't. I guess he didn't want to feel any effects. I don't know.
What a sissy.
Right. Their bodies were taken out back and burned because Hitler had not wanted his body in the hands of the Russians. Now, if you talk to some conspiracy theorists, they'll tell you, oh, he moved to South America.
Argentina.
And don't get me wrong, there were some that fled to South America, but
Yeah, that is a thing. That did happen. Okay.
Yeah.
But I'm reminded of a line from the movie While You Were Sleeping.
Okay.
When one of the family members says, Argentina has good beef and Nazis.
Oh my God. Did you know too that in after the Civil War, a lot of Confederate allies, or whatever you want to call them, the people that were like, I want to keep my slaves, and those people, they actually moved to South America. There's like a whole colony of people who are descendants of
Confederate sympathizers? Oh my God. Yes. Well,
not even kidding.
I know what I'm Googling later.
It's kind of crazy. Yes. Just so you know, I'm from the South. I am glad we lost. Okay? So glad. I am not one of those people. I am not into Confederate flags. Not into it, not into it, not into it. Just want to come out there and say that in case somebody's like, I don't know, she's from the South, and there's crazy people in the South. Mm-hmm. There's crazy people everywhere. But
there are.
I digress. Now, other members of his command died via cyanide as well.
Wow. Were any of their bodies recovered? Or
yes, and it gets kind of sad because Chancellor Joseph Goebbels, he and his wife actually gave their children doses of
Oh my God.
cyanide. Because in their minds, if they get captured, unspeakable things will happen to them. It was very
They'd
end of the
immediately be
world
tortured.
sort of
Okay.
thing. So
But you're saying that Hitler didn't want his body to fall into the hands of the Russians in particular.
that's what he said, because he was afraid that they would like parade him through the streets.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, which I
Okay.
mean, he's dead. Whatever. So after killing their children, they actually killed themselves too.
That's horrible.
Heinrich Himmler, the guy who basically put the Holocaust together, killed himself with cyanide after being captured, as did Nazi Party leader Hermann Göring.
After he was captured.
Yeah, I'm sure he had
Interesting. Oh, okay.
basically a little.
Like the guy from Hydra.
Yeah.
Wow.
Isn't Hydra basically Nazis?
It is. It's
Basically.
it's like a
Yeah.
it's a homologue.
Yeah. Okay. One last person I want to talk about because I think it has to do a lot with wartime stuff.
Okay.
Okay. Is a man we don't hear about enough. His name was Alan Turing. Okay. He was a respected English mathematician and considered now to be the father of theoretical computer science and artificial intelligence.
Oh. Okay.
He was a war hero, let's be honest.
All right.
He had a PhD in math from Princeton University. I think they call it maths.
Maths.
Mathematics.
With an S on the end.
Mathematics, yes. He's also the developer of the Turing test, which is like an attempt to define a standard for calling machines intelligent. Like, can it learn? That kind of thing.
Oh.
Yeah, so,
Okay.
you know the CAPTCHA tests that you do to prove that you're not a robot?
Yes.
It's like the opposite of what the Turing test is.
Oh. Okay.
Sort of. Anyway, now during World War II, he worked for the Government Code and Cipher School at Bletchley Park, which is Britain's code-breaking center at the time.
Wow.
He was responsible for German naval cryptanalysis, and he created the bomb method, BOMBE, which cracked the Enigma code used by the Nazis, and it was said to be uncrackable.
Yo.
Now, because of this, the Allies could intercept messages, and cracking this code is said to have ended the war 2 years early and saved millions of lives.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, this is where it gets messy. Mm-hmm. He admitted he was living a lifestyle that was considered illegal at the time. And he admitted to being homosexual after his house was burgled and the man he was seeing told him that he knew the robber. So he was worried that, like, this person knew him.
Is this guy the subject of The Imitation Game, that movie?
I don't know. I've never seen it.
Okay.
But he admitted this to police, unfortunately.
Whoops.
And like I said, homosexuality was illegal in the UK at the time, and he was arrested, as was the man he had been seeing. This gets pretty awful. He was released on conditions that he undergo hormone therapy and chemical castration.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, horrible times. His conviction led to his security clearance being removed, and he was banned from continuing his work in cryptoanalysis, even after all he'd done.
Golly.
He was thought to be a security risk because of his homosexuality. I don't know how they figured that, but
I never knew that.
he was also denied entry into the U.S. in 1952 because of his
Of
conviction.
Okay.
He was found dead in June 8th of 1954 at his home by his housekeeper with a half-eaten apple nearby. An autopsy found that he had been poisoned with cyanide. The apple was never tested for some reason,
Because nobody cared.
but they assume that that's possibly where he got the dose from.
From the apple? Wait,
Now-
was somebody actually intending to poison him, or he just accidentally had too much of a dose?
Just wait.
Okay, sorry.
Okay. Well, it wouldn't have been like if it was. It would have been an apple laced with cyanide. It wouldn't have been because there are
Oh, okay.
the seeds
Right, because
or
we
anything
mentioned
like
the
that.
apple cores earlier that
Right.
have
There's
a certain...
not enough in an apple core to kill
Okay,
you.
okay.
There's not enough of that.
All
It's just that there happens to be a tiny bit of it in there.
Okay.
Now, the inquest determined his death was a suicide, but there are some who suspect it may have been an accident or foul play.
Okay.
Maybe even,
A murder.
yeah. I mean, yeah. So. Now, there was a petition in 2011 requesting that the British government pardon Turing of his quote-unquote gross indecency conviction. After fighting for this, pardon. It was finally done by the Queen in 2014.
The Queen?
The Queen.
Hey. Okay.
And the Alan Turing law was put into effect in 2016, and retroactively it pardons men who were convicted under historical legislation that outlaws homosexuality.
Wow.
But I just thought not enough people know about Alan Turing.
Yeah.
And what he did, and that's a shame to me. So I just wanted to.
I think that.
And it falls within this category because he did die by cyanide. So.
It does. That's crazy.
Yes.
I wonder why someone would want to harm him at that point, though. He lost everything.
Yeah, but I think since he also knew a lot.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
like spy stuff.
Yeah, I mean, there's a case to be made that he knew too much, and they were worried about him spreading.
That's crazy, dude.
It's just a theory. I don't know.
Yeah.
Also, why would he? If that's how he was going to go, why do it with an apple laced with cyanide? That just seems a bit dramatic, or I don't know. It just seems like there's other ways to go.
Sure.
Do that, but then again, it's just a theory. Now, so that's our episode this week on cyanide.
That's part one.
I did a lot of stuff about war and basically that kind of stuff. Next week, I want to talk about cyanide and its uses with cults. And also just
drinking the Kool-Aid even.
I'll say, cults, mass killings. We'll also talk about maybe the Tylenol murders.
The Tylenol murders?
You remember those?
I'm immediately interested. I don't know what that is.
What?
Ma'am, okay. I do not.
Well, we're going to have an interesting time next week.
Okay. So this is part 1 today for cyanide.
Yes.
Next episode is part 2 for cyanide.
Right.
Amazing.
I'm trying to go and this is also kind of a chronological order because the cults and things kind of happen after.
Sure, that makes sense.
So, and I feel like I wanted to get the wartime government assassination stuff in one, so it's all together. It just felt more organized that way.
All right.
So. Sounds
good.
Yeah.
All right. That's it for this episode. Thank you guys for listening. We will see you in the next one.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
Bye.